to the show that goes where food grows. Here we are, it's late in the season and the end of the year with our holiday classic, the chestnut. We'll be cooking today with these highly protected nuts in this chestnut grove. And a state away, but almost a world away, is our farmer correspondent, Shauna Solari, in everybody's paradise, Maui, Hawaii's agricultural island. Hello, Shauna.
Aloha, Lulu.
Well, how's your winter wonderland?
I've officially defrosted here in Maui. We know Hawaii as a vacation paradise, but this tropical island is home to agriculture all year long. I will be bringing you grower stories to warm your winter chill.
No worries, because we're going to heat it up here on the mainland with our local talent and guest chef, Mr. Roberto Pedrini from Elkhorn Golf Club. Hi, Robert. How are you?
Good. How are you, Luann?
Good. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
I understand you're going to do something with chestnuts today.
Yes, I am. We're going to have a couple of dishes made today with chestnuts.
Which will you be making?
The couple of things I'll be making today is a chestnut stuffed mushroom topped with brie, and I'll be making a stuffed pork chop with fennel, cranberries, and chestnuts.
Oh, sounds delicious.
Yes.
There's a secret recipe too, right, that you won't be preparing today?
Yes, I do make a special chestnut biscotti, which is actually something I've been working on for the last couple of years, and it has come out very well.
Okay, so they can get the recipe online?
Correct.
And I get to taste it later?
Yes, you do.
Okay, well, let's get started. Why don't you tell us which ingredients you're going to use for the first recipe with the mushrooms?
Today we're going to start off with a cremini mushrooms, which is a brown mushroom. You can find them at any local grocery store. And we're going to start by trying to remove any excess dirt you have on the caps. You try to not submerge them in water because they will absorb water. So you just wipe it off with a damp towel, any excess dirt, and you're going to remove the stems as you go, leaving a pocket inside to stuff them for later.
So definitely don't soak these in a sink of cold water.
No, definitely not. As you go on, you're going to grab your olive oil. You're going to drizzle them with a little bit of olive oil, a little bit of thyme.
It's looking good.
And some salt as well.
Okay, looks good.
And then we will toss it a little bit here.
So do you find yourself using different oils, or is it always usually olive oil?
Every dish I make may use a different kind of oil or a different kind of grease product, I should say. I tend to use oil for roasting, searing, baking, things like that. I try not to use as much butter, but I do use butter. I will be using it today in a couple of dishes, so I do like an extra virgin olive oil most of the times. And what we'll do is we'll get these mushrooms, we'll place them on a sheet pan face down. This will actually help open the mushroom, make it easier to stuff later on.
Well, that's an interesting trick. I never knew that.
You'll place them face down, and then we'll slide them right here in the oven for about 10 minutes.
And how hot was that oven?
And this oven was set to 375.
Okay.
And we'll put it in there for about 10 minutes.
Okay.
One of the things I want to show you before we move on is actually chestnuts. In this recipe, it calls for boiled chestnuts.
Okay.
Something kind of tricky. Put a little incision inside of it, kind of almost like a little X. And that actually helps the chestnut to absorb the water and soften it up on the inside, because it is a very tough shell, and it has two layers, as you can see, one here and another one right underneath it.
Like a little membrane, huh?
And the membrane, exactly.
Okay. So you're like a little chestnut surgeon right now.
So we'll grab these chestnuts that I've already scored already, and we'll just put them in the water. And these will sit in here for about 20 minutes, 25 minutes until they're softened.
Okay.
And they'll be ready to go. And this is actually what it comes out to look like after they've been boiled. Softer, they peel off the shell very easily.
So let me get this right. When you boil it, it makes that membrane come off easy?
Yes, it actually, a chestnut in the raw form, trying to peel it, it's stuck to the nut. After you boil it, it actually peels itself. As you can see, it stays intact without tearing as much of the meat off.
And chestnuts have a lot of starch in them, huh?
Yes, they are very starchy. If you eat it in a raw form, I've heard a lot of people say they almost taste like a potato. So, as we go on, we'll actually start the dish with a shallot. And we will take a shallot, clean it up here a little bit.
You know, chestnuts used to be pretty prevalent in the United States on the East Coast. And it wasn't until I think 1904 they just got wiped out by a blight. I had no idea. So all those American chestnut trees died, and the ones that we have here now are actually from the settlers who came when the gold rush occurred. The settlers that came from Europe brought what we have now, like today, the trees that are around us.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just going to cut these shallots, mincing them very small so we could stuff them for the stuffed mushroom.
Thanks. And while you're doing that, we're going to take a short break, and we'll be back to finish the stuffed mushrooms.
Ocean Vodka's organic farm and distillery highlights the hardworking Smith family's commitment to social and environmental conscious business practices. Produced from the farming of sugarcane by Select Harvest, their intense distillation process creates a neutral spirit free from impurities, leaving only the sugarcane spirit. In effect, the Smiths have created a value-added agriculture product from Hawaii that supports the local economy for all the world to enjoy.
Okay, so we're back. We've got mushroom caps in the oven. Roberto's chopping things up. Take it from here.
So as we finish chopping the shallots up, we're actually going to put these inside of a skillet, adding a little olive oil.
Do you heat your skillet before you put the oil in?
Always.
Okay.
Always. I try to keep the skillet warm because I want that initial sizzle as soon as I throw them in. It actually helps the onion or shallot or garlic or whatever you're using at that time sear the flavors in. It kind of puts a little sear on it. So we'll add these in there.
It smells good already.
We'll give it a little stir. We'll add some rosemary.
Now, did you just pluck that from the bush, or has that been drying?
This is actually fresh rosemary.
Okay.
I pick most of my rosemary out of my garden.
That's
As
nice.
this is cooking,
Oh, you got that old flip down.
we don't want to let it brown too much. And we're going to finish sauteing these shallots down a little bit with the rosemary. And once they become translucent and light brown in color like this, is where we're going to add the sausage. And it's about one sausage worth, one link. And you could use a bulk, purchase it like this in a bulk form, or if you have a sausage link, cut the casing off, remove the casing.
Okay. So if you make homemade sausage, can you use that too?
Yes, you can use your homemade sausage. I prefer to put Italian sweet sausage. If you like a little spicy, you can use a spicier sausage. And we're gonna just break this sausage down using a spatula, spoon, anything you have available.
Okay, Roberto, while you're breaking up and cooking that sausage, we're gonna check in and see what Shauna's doing.
I'm great, Lulu. Today we're here with Manu at Kumu Farm, and she's going to tell us about this beautiful opal basil.
Yes, basically there is the Italian Genovese basil, there is the Thai basil, and there is opal basil. This is sometimes called the purple basil, sometimes black basil. It's a very fragrant, very nice to cook with.
We do pesto with this. We have purple pesto.
You have purple pesto, why not?
Fun for the kids.
Yeah, fun for the kids.
How do you like farming in Maui?
Of course, being in Hawaii, you are blessed by this wonderful weather. So there are certain crops you can, harvest year round. So we grow right now pretty much 30 different crops, 12 different herbs, and everything else. It's basically all kind of vegetables. I think vegetables are also a piece of arts. They are good for you, they are good for your soul, for your body, and that's why we kind of like also to immortalize our vegetables. But of course, farming, no matter what, there are always, you go with the flow of nature.
Right.
And going with the flow of nature means, you have always the same problem. The water, the too much sun. After summer, it's a little bit more harsh for the plants, but pretty much we're blessed to be here in Hawaii and farming.
Serving goat dairy. The dairy with its 3 working rooms produces 30 different cheeses, and their Maui gourmet cheeses have received 18 national awards for 18 different cheeses. They divided the cheeses into 3 categories: Shark Bite, Aloha, and Paradise. The Surfing Goat Dairy aspires to the Hawaiian philosophy, Defeta Mo Betta. Surfing Goat Dairy.
And we're diving into these chestnuts. Okay, Roberto, which ones are these? Have they been boiled already?
These have been boiled. These are a boiled chestnut, and they usually have the skin on, and after they've been boiled, it peels off very easily. You should be able to pull correct.
Yeah, that's really easy.
And as you're peeling that, I'm actually going to take a couple of these that we need, and I'm going to start cutting these up, and I just slice into them like this. And we're just going to rough chop them basically.
Rough chop versus nice chop?
Rough chop meaning it's not perfectly symmetrical sizes. We're actually just kind of rough chopping them up.
Make them smaller, huh?
Yeah, basically just cut them up down to a smaller size so we could fit them inside of our dish.
I rough chop every day.
So as these get chopped, we're going to add a couple more ingredients to this. The sausages have been cooked about halfway, and we're going to add a little bit of Madeira wine.
So that's a little bit of a sweeter flavor, correct?
Sweeter flavor. This is kind of in the same family as Marsala, I'd have to say. And we're going to put a little bit of garlic in here as well.
It smells really good already.
Oh, thank you. And as this sautés, we could add the chestnuts. These rough chopped chestnuts. We'll add these in.
You can see the starchy texture, huh?
Yes, very starchy texture. And they'll absorb most of the Marsala, or the Madeira, excuse me.
Chestnuts add a little sweet flavor too, right?
After a chestnut's been boiled, it becomes sweeter.
Yeah. Okay.
A roasted chestnut has kind of a different flavor than boiled chestnut. They do tend to get a little sweeter when you boil them. And we're just going to continue crushing this sausage down. And after it's completely cooked here, which it's almost there right now, we're going to put it off to the side here, let it cool slightly.
Do you use non-stick, or do you usually always?
I tend not to use non-stick unless I'm maybe cooking a fillet of fish, something like that. I try to use these all stainless bowls here, pans.
Oh, it smells delicious.
So we add the ingredients in there. Then you're going to add a couple more final ingredients. You're going to add the breadcrumbs, just a coarse breadcrumb, and your Parmesan cheese. And you're going to incorporate this all together to kind of almost make a paste.
I'm trying to think, is this a gluten-free dish or not?
This would not be a gluten-free dish. The bread itself has gluten in it. Gluten is a wheat product, so the breadcrumb that we put in. You could make this a gluten-free dish by removing the breadcrumbs that you put in it and maybe substituting it with something like rice.
Okay.
And we'll take the mushrooms that we roasted off. We'll take our spoon here, add the stuffing inside the mushrooms.
So this is a good job for the kids.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is actually a great job for the kids. They like playing with stuffing the mushrooms and stuffing the raviolis around the holidays at our house and things like that. They have fun with all those kind of things.
You're probably the ringleader in there, huh?
Yeah. And after we filled them up, we actually got this brie cheese here.
Okay.
If you want to get this and cut this, we're going to cut a few pieces off, similar to that size.
Ah, you cut that skin off.
In my house, we eat the skin, everything.
Yes.
But at the restaurant, I tend to cut the skin off.
Oh, okay.
So we want to just make pieces like that, and we're going to add them on top.
I can do that. Well, we're going to put this in the oven after that?
Yes, these are actually going to go in the oven.
That's sticky.
Yeah, brie is a very sticky cheese. And we'll put these in the oven for about 5 minutes, 6 minutes, at about 400 degrees.
Okay, well, while we do that, let's check in with Shauna and see what those local growers in Hawaii are up to.
Hi Lulu, today we're here with Bobby Pahia at Ho'aloha Farms, where he's going to talk to us about this wonderful crop we're standing in. Bobby, what is this we're standing in?
Well, we're standing here in a field of taro. This variety is also known as the Maui Lehua taro, and in Hawaii we use it here for our famous ingredient, what we call poi, the staple of the native Hawaiian people. We also use it for a pudding we make out of the taro along with coconut, and we also utilize the leaf, and we kind of use it in the form of a spinach, so to speak.
So how many different varieties are there of taro?
Well, at one time there was over 250 varieties of native Hawaiian taros. Around the world there's over 5,000 varieties, but in Hawaii right here I grow a native Hawaiian taro called the Maui Lehua. In this field over here we grow about 5 different types of taro. Taro similar like a potato. We also have a variety called the Elele Naiowea, the royal black taros. We have the Elele Makoko and the Elele Naiowea.
Thank you, Bobby, for being with us today.
You're welcome.
Where Bobby gets to farm 365 days in his t-shirt, Lulu's in her winter coat.
We have our appetizers out of the oven. Now we're ready to make the main dish. Roberto?
So we're going to start off with our pork chop here, and this is a bone-in pork rack, and I start by just removing a chop out of each.
You have to have a good knife for that.
Yes, I tend to use a larger, heavier knife for all my cooking needs. This I can use this pretty much for anything: dicing, slicing, cutting, carving.
So you're going to be stuffing these, right?
Correct.
Okay. So those are pretty thick, and you want to have them about that thick, right?
Yes, you do want a large cut, thick pork chop. The thinner it is, the easier it'll be for it to dry out.
Little chestnut blessing. That's what we get out in here in nature. The unpredictable.
We're going to cut through. And like I said, you got the bone there.
There you go.
Cut right through it. And we'll set these off to the side so we can use for the stuffing. Now we're going to start off with the stuffing for the pork chop. Basically, we are going to start by grabbing a fennel bulb. You're going to want to cut the cap off. And we are going to slice the bulb in quarters, removing the heel stem out of it there.
So this is not the rough cut, this is more symmetrical. So now you're going to use the butter instead of the oil for the pork chops?
Yes. To saute this, we'll put in a couple tablespoons of butter, melt it down.
So, you know, chestnuts are quite European. And actually, my grandmother grew up in a town called Castagneri, which means chestnuts. You familiar with that town?
No, I mean, I've heard of it before. I've actually been all throughout Italy. I haven't actually stopped there, but I have heard of the town before. So,
ti parli italiano?
Sì, parlo italiano. I speak a little Italian. I actually speak pretty good. My whole family speaks Italian. My mother and father immigrated from Italy.
So you know all about this chestnut thing.
Oh yes, chestnuts are very big in our household. So basically I'm just gonna Saute the fennel down a little bit. I want to brown it. Once the fennel is semi-cooked, we're going to actually add Swiss chard to it. And if I could have you actually break the Swiss chard down for me. There's kind of a couple ways you could do it. You can cut it and just remove the rib.
I can do that.
And then we'll lay it all down and just kind of rough chop it.
Okay, I can do that. I better speed it up here. I'm not as fast as you. I know, I'm just not fast enough for you, Roberto.
You're doing just great.
I'm not going to be hired at your restaurant. Okay.
So we're going to take this, and we're actually going to fold it all up here. Put it in here after the fennel's been slightly cooked there. And as that's cooking, we're actually going to add in a little bit of salt and pepper. So we're going to cook this down a little bit more. Our next ingredient, which is going to be the onions and the chestnuts.
Our featured guest, the chestnut.
So after this has been cooked down a little bit like this, we're going to put it in our bowl. Set it off to the side. And using the same pan actually, add a couple more tablespoons of butter. And we're going to be browning the onions. Just a sliced onion.
Do you use white or yellow or red?
We're going to use the yellow onion for this.
Okay. All right, well, while they're caramelizing, we're going to check in with Shauna in Maui.
Hi, Lulu. Today we're here with Chauncey, and he's going to tell us a little bit about his farm.
Today we're at Kula Country Farms farm stand, where we have strawberry U-pick, pumpkin patch, and there's assorted local fresh vegetables from all over the island, all local from Maui.
And how long have you been farming?
I've been farming about 16 years, but I was born and raised on my dad's farm right in this area of Kula. After I got a degree in finance, I came back and we decided to raise our family on the farm.
So you gave up finance for farming?
Yes, I did.
And you enjoy it?
Tremendously, yes. Well, one thing about that makes Maui great is because of our different changes in elevation and soil and the great weather we have all year, we can grow almost anything you can grow all over the world. So we can grow a great variety of products that people can just get here locally, and we can produce locally, and no need to insource them from other countries on the mainland. We can get it all right here.
And you can grow that all year round?
Mostly, yes.
Chauncey, thank you so much for being with us today here in Maui. We're going to go back to Lulu.
Okay, and we're back. Roberto's sauteing some of the ingredients for the stuffed pork chop. How's it coming there?
Pretty good. The onions are about well caramelized now. And at this point, we can actually add the chestnuts in.
Perfect.
We're going to add the chestnuts here. And we're going to add a little bit of coriander. And that was a pinch of nutmeg.
Nutmeg, okay.
A little pinch of nutmeg.
Seasonal too.
And just going to put it in here with this, the two ingredients now. And now we're going to come to the point where we're done with the cooking. We're going to put in a few cranberries.
That's kind of festive too.
Yeah. And we're going to put a couple of red pepper flakes in here.
Ooh, spice it up a little.
Yeah, not much, but just a couple.
Yeah, a lot of different flavors going on.
Yeah,
there.
there's a lot of different flavors, and that's the exact reason why I want to keep the two items cooked separately. You don't want to blend them all together. You want to be able to taste every individual item.
Makes sense.
And we'll set this off to the side, and we'll go back to the pork.
Back to the pork, okay.
Yep. You'll get your pork chop here, and you're going to make an incision right in the middle here. Send it all the way through the back, almost till you're touching the bone,
Okay.
and start slicing across.
Okay, you know, when I cook pork, oftentimes it gets dry.
Yeah, cooking pork will tend to get dry. I tend to sear the pork first in a pan, and then I'll roast it in the oven. It helps keep the moisture in as well, not letting it escape. So after you cut through, leaving about 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 of an inch around the three sides, meaning the back and the two sides here. You want to leave a nice deep pocket on the inside. You can actually take some of your stuffing, and this is where it gets messy. You can kind of use your hand.
It's
and
okay.
You can kind of fill it up on the inside and kind of almost make a big blister. Filling it up, pressing in.
I can't wait to taste this. It looks really good.
So we'll fill it up, kind of close it off. We'll repeat it with another one here.
Okay, while he's completing the stuffing of the pork chop, we're gonna cut to break and then we'll get things cooking. Okay, while you were gone, Roberto seared up those pork chops, put them in the oven, pulled them out, and what'd you put it with?
Oh, this is a herbed creamy polenta that I put on the bottom here.
Looks great. So now we've plated, we get to pair it with some Cabernet. Okay, now we get to taste these little guys that I've been waiting to do all this show. Thank you so much, Robert.
Thank you.
Delicious.
They are good.
So here's to you, Roberto. Thank you.
Thank you.
And to the crew, and Maui too.
You're gonna watch out and get home.
Comfortable someone.
At a aloha fun. This is so.
We're gonna need English subtitle for
See how we're doing over here with lights. Fantastic.
Only the boots come up.
Don't be shy. Don't be shy.
Yeah, so this is probably
To get the top of my head, because that's just messy.
Chris, I think
you can't hide.
Well, Brian, I know they're good fresh.
Oh, you're gonna be drinking with Brian. You're working with Irish today.
Tanaka's my man. He bailed me out, baby. Senator, by your leave, sir. West Wing. West Wing.